There was no disrespect addressed at all down at Doak Campbell Stadium. In fact, if anything, Tommy Castellanos stood on business and made sure that he delivered, because that is exactly what we saw in a 31-17 victory as Florida State pulls off the ultimate upset of week one. Let's break it all down. Welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. It's Cole Thompson here. Like the video, hit the ring notification, and of course, subscribe to the channel because we talk college football every single day. Good, bad, indifferent, regardless of the outcome. We break down the signature moments right here every single Saturday. Make sure that you also are following us on social media at SEC Unfiltered. Follow me at Mr. Cole Thompson and check out all of our great work found at SECUnfiltered.com. And as always, we're proudly partnered with our friends over at FanDuel. Go visit FanDuel.com/SECU. Get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Lay down $5, win $250 in bonus bets when that bet cashes in. Maybe it's on Tommy Castellanos to win the Heisman Trophy. Maybe it's on Alabama making it to the college football playoff, or Kalen DeBoer being the first coach fired in the SEC this year. Everything and anything is up for an opinion. We can break it all down right here, but do so at FanDuel.com/SECU. I am wearing the Alabama shirt. I'm just going to make it clear. I had to go to a watch party earlier today. I'm waiting for my niece to be born, and so I didn't have time to change. I forgot some things at my house, so we're doing this kind of just on the fly. I have some notes written down, but bottom line, this was an embarrassing performance for Alabama, top to bottom, on so many different levels. But before we go any further, we have got to give a testament and credit where credit's due to Florida State. Yes, Alabama looked dreadful today. They had no running game. They were undisciplined and careless penalties. They constantly were dropping footballs left and right. And the animosity of what is Doak Campbell Stadium in a matchup that had been written in stone as a potential upset, circled in a big, bright red Sharpie on your calendar, was all on display. But the thing that we have not done enough of, and I haven't seen this at all on Twitter except from a very few select people, Florida State saw its faults and said, all right, it's time to go to work. They went out and they made two exceptional hires for their coordinators in Gus Malzahn and Tony White. Tony White was one of the most underappreciated moves of the entire offseason, and it felt like a blip on the radar because of everyone else talking about the SEC and other programs in it. They went out and they completely revitalized their roster. And I said this on the preview. So much unknown could be a problem for Alabama to go up against, because if you don't know what to expect, you could watch film on Thomas Castellanos when he was at Boston College. You could know what Roydell Williams was going to be based off of the small sample size you had. You could look at Micah Pettis. You could look at several players like Elijah Herring defensively, but you wouldn't know what they were all going to play like together because we hadn't seen them actually on the field at one time. And they went out and they landed the right players. They got better on the offensive line. They targeted the right names in the transfer portal at the wide receiver position. They fixed their defense with the right hire as the coordinator and the guy calling the shots. And ultimately, this may end up being a really good Florida State team. I'm not saying that Alabama didn't shoot itself in the foot and give constant opportunities for Florida State to pile on and show why they were the better team on Saturday. What I am saying is, we're not giving credit where credit's due to Florida State actually being a good football program. They have turned the corner. They went 2-10 last year. The only place to go when you hit rock bottom like that is up. And they did, in probably one of the most emphatic games of Mike Norvell's career, as fans for the first time in a brand new version of Doak Campbell Stadium got to rush the field and celebrate a marquee win. It's not a good look for Kalen DeBoer. It isn't. Now, a lot of you are going to say it's not a good look because you lost to an unranked team. When you were favored by 13 plus points, this is now the third time in the Kalen DeBoer era that you have lost a game when favored by 13 points or more outright. And it's the third time you've also lost to an unranked team when favored by 2 touchdowns. It's not a good look. But that's not the reason why this is a bad loss for Alabama. Alabama, this entire offseason, the way that we talked about them, the way that we reached out to people, the way that things were going behind closed doors, the conversations that I had with friends, with family members, with people who I know are very close to the program, mentioned that there is a new chemistry, there is a new feel, there was a certain culture shift, and the way that practices were going about, and the way that things were transcending behind the scenes, and the way that the offensive personnel was clicking, and the way that we saw the overall practice schedule. It felt like things were going to be different this year. And I mean from the small sample size, the inability to create separation, the inability to win your one-on-one battles, the constant negation of careless penalties that were a problem at the end of the Nick Saban era and certainly were a problem at the start of the Kalen DeBoer era. All of that were things that we had said were going to be completely changed overnight, and they weren't. Alabama rushed for 55 yards in the first half. They rushed for 22 yards the rest of the game. That's not sustainable. It isn't. That's a way to guarantee that you are going to lose. On top of that, 8 penalties for 70 yards, including 4 false start penalties and 3 defensive plays that were on third down critical drives. That's not sustainable. The Damani Jackson play, which by the way, he had one, he didn't have the second one, is inexcusable by any means. This is a player who has been around a premier program for years, and he makes a careless move on Thomas Castellanos as he's running out of bounds to tack on an extra 15 that would have been a fresh set of downs. It would have just been, at least you would have had him at the 30. LT Overton with another penalty, driving the quarterback into the ground. Those are mistakes that are beyond correctable and unfortunately led to you giving up free yards, a fresh set of downs, and new life for a Florida State team that had nothing to lose. Nothing at all. If Florida State loses this game and they proceed to go on to be 9-3 this year, guess what? People are going to look at it as still a successful season in Tallahassee. Got the right offensive coordinator, got the right quarterback, got the right defensive coordinator, certainly have put your program in a position to be successful and on a run toward the college football playoff in 2026. They win this game, it's the talk of the Labor Day weekend. And you thought that you had your storyline because Arch Manning was lining up for a front row seat to be the whipping post for the SEC. He was. But also, now you have to have a serious conversation with yourself. All bets are off for Kalen DeBoer. I'm not saying that Kalen DeBoer will be fired after this season. I am an Alabama graduate, and I've seen the Alabama days where you have watched worse coaches come through this program and find a way to mess it up and found a way to have some success. I'm just telling you that. But if things do not change in the little details, careless penalties, shooting yourself in the foot on third down, the inability to protect your quarterback, the inability to establish a simple ground game, an area that was a weakness toward the end of the Saban era outside of Jalen Milroe, and a weakness in the Kalen DeBoer era, then those are things that Alabama fans will not stand for. They will not settle on. And eventually, you will see them hit reset. The beauty is that this may end up being a successful victory for Florida State and one for Alabama if Florida State continues to hold up its end of the bargain. Now, I'm not going to look so far ahead and say that Florida State is now a dark horse for the college football playoff. They can be in the running for the postseason and certainly a national championship with Tommy Castellanos as their starting quarterback. What I am saying is Alabama went on the road. They lost a game to a Power 4 opponent. If they win out, they're fine. But if you don't win out and you don't make the college football playoff, everything is on the table for this team, especially when it comes to their coaching search, especially when it comes to the direction of the program and who they want to go after when it comes to a buyout. People were promised that things were going to be different this year. And in some ways they were. Ty Simpson, they were for over 200 yards. Did have some connectivity with some wide receivers. Made one egregious, I can't even fathom, 4th down mistake trying to target Ryan Williams when if you just tuck and run and pick up the 6 yards, slide, maybe you have an opportunity to score, get back in this game, and make it 24-24. Watch as Florida State has to run it down the field. Outside of that, very hard to argue with most of the results. Had a very solid day with 254 passing yards, found the end zone twice, also was able to tuck and run it a couple times, picked up an average of 10 yards per play when he did run the football, 0.4 yards on the afternoon because if you also have to include the sack total, 2 touchdowns. It was an overall decent day for the quarterback. It was a terrible day for the offensive line. It was a terrible day to run the football. Wide receivers were dropping balls left and right, including Ryan Williams. Jeremy Bernard was really the only X factor on the offense that gave you any consistency. 8 catches, 146 yards, 18.3 yards per play. He's going to be the guy that you have to target a lot more. That's what you have at your disposal. Alabama was inconsistent. Alabama was undisciplined. Alabama, in the way that they looked in this matchup, felt eerily similar to the way they looked against Oklahoma last year. A mobile quarterback that you did not know much about, who was a cast-off in some senses for a team that was going in a different direction. For Thomas Castellanos, it was Boston College. For Oklahoma, it was the transfer portal bringing in somebody else, is able to run rampant against you. You're unable to bring him down. Careless execution and ways to fly to the football. And the instability of being able to correct those mistakes led to a loss. It's the same way. You played the exact same way. The difference is you didn't have any interceptions. And despite having a decent number of overall passing numbers, it was a mundane day for the Crimson Tide offense. It was. You should be worried if you are an Alabama fan. I'm not saying it's the end-all be-all. I'm not saying that this team can't find a way to make it to the postseason. I'm not saying that this team isn't going to respond. Because again, the other side of the token that we refuse to actually look at is the fact that maybe Florida State is decent. We have no idea. But I'm not going to make excuses for this game. This was a dreadful performance for Alabama. It was an inexcusable performance from Kalen DeBoer. It was a horrendous showing for the ideal of the offense underneath a new play caller in Ryan Glubb. And the same mistakes that we watched late last year, we are seeing once again. It's not okay if you are an Alabama fan. But sometimes there are two things that can be true. The first is there is a villain that will always find a way to win. That's Gus Malzahn. Gus Malzahn has been able to beat up on Alabama in so many different facets for years. Years when he was the Auburn head coach. And I certainly can imagine if they played against UCF, you would be shaking in your boots if you were playing in the bounce house. He's had a way with quarterbacks. He's had a way with a certain brand of offense that is able to attack. And it was on display again today. The other thing is that Florida State made the right corrections in the offseason. They targeted the right names in the portal. They had a good overall balance when it came to bringing in the right coaches. There was a solid cohesion in terms of the offensive line that does not get enough credit. That offensive line against Alabama's front seven made Alabama look like a junior varsity football team. And that's a brand new unit of 4 dudes playing together for the first time and 1 dude returning. That's what you had. And they looked like the better team. At times today, the team that went 2-10 last year made the team that went 9-3 and was fighting for a college football spot look like they were the ones losing in Dublin, Ireland. A culture shift, night and day difference. And I have to tip my hat. It's a poor excuse of a game for Alabama. No questions asked. It is a beautiful performance by Mike Norvell and Florida State. You have to wonder what's going to happen in the SEC. Tonight, we are less than 30 minutes away from kickoff, 20 minutes away from kickoff in Clemson, South Carolina, between an LSU team who may end up being the last scent of hope because of whether or not Virginia Tech wins against South Carolina. I think that would just be already too much to deal with. The ACC going 3-0 against the SEC. This may be your last chance. This may be your last stand before this entire conference implodes on itself. A horrendous offensive performance from Texas at times today. A horrendous offensive performance from Alabama at times today. The undiscipline of the Crimson Tide today. And now you're banking on LSU to be able to show on up. It's a lot of things that is unknown. It's a lot of things that are horrifying. Let's get to the comment sections before we end it. SEC is wide open this year. Yeah, it very well might be, Tyler. It very well might be. I'm not even going to try and disrespect that at all. Everyone knows it. Nick Saban is a legend. He was Bama. Right now, it feels that way. Physicality of Bama is gone. Alabama was getting bullied off the line of scrimmage. Nonstop. I'm sick of the SEC over hype crap. Well, right now, it does feel that way. It was. It's not just DeBoer. It isn't. And I'm going to defend this as much as possible. You can be upset as an Alabama fan. You can be completely justified to want to hit reset on the coaching staff, on the direction of this team. And I get it. I completely understand where you come from. But what I'm telling you is that this isn't on DeBoer entirely. Yes, it's his program, but the bottom line is that the on-field execution is your players, and they didn't deliver. Extend DeBoer, he's Alabama's coach that he deserves. Yep. Big Ten just win those things. Wide receivers have many drops. Yes, they did. They absolutely did. I didn't know South Carolina fans. That's actually kind of funny. ACC bottom dweller beats the best in the SEC, and the SEC still sucks. Kind of. I'll tell you what. I'm not ready to go that far, Prime. I honestly do believe that Florida State, and I've said this, and if you actually listen to me here or over on College Football Addiction, I've said that I do believe we are seeing a change for Florida State. It's actually going to be very beneficial. they are probably going to be a top 6 seed in the ACC this year. So we're not going to go that far, bottom dweller. But I'll tell you what, they are certainly not a team that you expected going into this game. Everyone expected Alabama to be able to run rampant against this roster. Bro, the SEC is nearly won every sports championship in football. Yeah, the past 30 years, 50% in 5 different teams. Okay, I think you're probably asking someone in the comment section on that one. Sorry about that. Stop being emotional. But yeah, see, you're just, that's just a comment section for somebody else. Cox win the SEC. Yeah, there's potential in that one. Everyone else has lost in the postseason. Yep. You are absolutely correct. I believe I am correct on that one. Let's see. Last couple before we get out of here. Get your comments in before we end the live stream. Joji, FSU is far from a mid-hater. Gus always beats Alabama, and FSU has got one of the best secondaries in the country. Their secondary played out of its mind today at times. Earl Little, great find. I don't understand where that kid came from, but I'll tell you what, he is going to be a name that you have got to know. Also, on the other sideline of things, let's talk about that wide receiver room. Yeah, Jalen Lucas is going to be a name that you have to target. I think Squirrel White only having 1 catch for 40 yards may have been a nothing burger, but it did set up a big-time touchdown. Deuce Robinson only had 28 yards. Talami Castellanos, though, is the story. 78 rushing yards on the ground, 152 passing yards, 10.9 yards of play. Guy did everything that you really want to and probably put himself in a good spot. Ours flopped and Alabama was a DOA. Yep, Alabama is DOA. FSU looked good. They'll be an overall 8-10 win team for sure, just like Bama. That's vastly overrated. Usually LSEC teams are. Again, I actually do think that FSU is going to be an 8-win team this year. And I've been on the record saying that. I think that they are going to win some games. I did not have this one being on the record, but I do think that FSU is going to win some games. I think Alabama is probably now a 10-win team if they get everything together. But they got to get everything together. I'm not ready to go ahead and punt on Kalen DeBoer. I'm not ready to go ahead and say that the season is lost. What I am here to say is that Alabama's defense is night and day different from what we have seen the last 3 years, and anything new underneath Nick Saban. Nowhere near the standard of what we're used to seeing underneath that guy. The other thing is that I think you also have to look at the overall status right now of the offensive line. They got bullied today. And it didn't matter if it was Parker Braille's fault or if it was Jaden Roberts. Caden Proctor had himself a bad day. It was a bad day. I'm going to have to go back and watch the film on this. That'll probably be what I do tomorrow morning before we do Sunday Fun Day with Chris Phillips. We got another live stream on later tonight, so we'll talk about that later. Make sure that you guys like the video, hit the ring notification. Offensive line was horrendous today on protecting Ty Simpson. They were getting bullied, and they were getting bullied by transfer portal players. That's the other thing. There was no continuity when it came to the overall offensive execution. That's something that you have got to get better at. If they don't, again, everything is off the table for the Crimson Tide. On paper, this is a very good team, but you can't say that anymore now with the season at hand. And that's kind of the beauty of college football. Like, I know I'm an Alabama grad. I know that I represent the SEC, and I probably do a good job of trying to stay even keel for the most part. But this is why I'm so excited that we have week 1 here. We no longer have to ask ourselves what is supposed to be on paper. What do we envision about this team? What do we think this team is made of? Because when we actually put now the ball down and we let the boys do work for 3 hours, that is the version that will end up telling the tale. Who is actually improved, who actually took a step forward, and who is needing to hit reset entirely. That's kind of the beauty of where we are with this football, with now football being back on our television screens. Nonstop. I'm not ready to give up on Alabama. I will just make this clear right now on August 30th. And you guys as well. If you are writing off Alabama, make sure you do so today. Because if you're not, that's understandable. But if you are, don't come joining back in the wagon if they end up running through the SEC and making it into the college football playoff. I don't think that they will, just to be completely transparent. I at least see 1, if not 2 more losses on the docket, maybe even 3. It is very possible. But I do think that I'm not ready to give up on Alabama. And I'm going to mark that on August 30th. Anything can happen, including Florida State being a better team. The mistakes that we saw for the Crimson Tide tonight are correctable, but you got to get to it fast. You have got to be able to sustain that pretty quickly. And I don't think that they will in certain spots. I think that you're just going to have to live with a couple of things that are probably just a part of your system. And now you are going to be a target for everybody else. And they know it. and they know how to beat you, and they know how to make you go ahead and wince, and they know where the areas that you are weak, and they know the areas where you are not going to get improved. So that'll be a thing that you have to worry about. Florida State, good game. And more importantly, great statement to your conference. We're here, we mean business. Last season was a fluke. This is the real version of Florida State football down in the ACC with Mike Norvell at the helm. Alabama, you got 2 weeks to get things prepared and then a bye before you go take on Georgia. If you do not fix any of those things, I don't think that you will survive the season with Kalen DeBoer as your head coach. I'll mark that up now. All right, we're going to end the live stream. I am waiting for the birth of my niece, so hopefully everything goes well with that. I will see you guys later tonight after the LSU and Clemson game. Make sure that you like the video, hit the ring notification, subscribe to the channel because we talk college football every single day. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the social media channels at SEC Unfiltered. I promise you there's going to be a lot of content coming out today and later on. Make sure that also you are following me at Mr. Cole Thompson. And lastly, make sure that you go on over to FANDUEL.com/SEC. You get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. It's very simple. It's very easy. If you believe Alabama is not going to hit its win total, because that's not changing, make sure that you go ahead and lay down that line. You're going to cash on in with $250 in bonus bets later on this month. Later at the end of the season. Make sure you go on over to FANDUEL.com/SECU. I'm Cole Thompson, the Alabama Crimson Tide as a top 10 team, which also, let me remind you on this. This is now the 4th year that a team has gone in ranked inside the top 10 against an ACC opponent while serving as the visitors. Now, one of them was a neutral site game, so you got to include that. Actually, 2 of them were neutral site games, so you got to include that. But 4th year in a row, top 10 team loses to an unranked ACC team. What more can you say? That's kind of the case. And I don't know where Alabama's going to fall in the rankings. I'd have them outside of the top 15. I'd have them closer to 21, if not even ranked at all. I don't think it's that far-fetched to go with it. I'm Cole Thompson. Alabama loses 31-17. Florida State sets the tone in 2025. Talk to you guys later tonight after LSU versus Clemson. Peace.